Good morning, this is Pixie, doing a video. Off to my yoga today. Yeah. I had an interesting conversation and it led to kind of... It's very strange, like in the background spiritually you know the answers to things. It's intuition. It's the higher consciousness as we like to perceive it as. But it shouldn't be seen as higher. I think they're just part of the trinity of consciousness, I'd imagine. That's probably what it is. And so we're talking about viruses. They're probably, you know, there was a 12 monkey experiment. I don't know if you've heard about that. So they had these monkeys that all from the same genetic line. They were all on this. Well, there was two islands, and they were separated. So they had no contact with each other. And in this lab, I think they taught these monkeys new skills or something they learned. But automatically, the other monkeys from the other island learned the same skill, and it was impossible unless it was some quantum relationship they had with each other or interconnected. And so, in the same way, viruses have that connection too. So when a virus is under attack or difficulty, this is why it needs to adapt. It knows it's dying, or it has some instinctive intelligence within it. But does the virus want to kill its host? It might want to exist in it, maybe it is aggressive enough. So what happens when people have antibiotics? So they ramp up their body's immune system and defence system, and what happens to the virus? Well, the virus isn't affected by the antibiotics directly. What happens is it basically, the stress of dying, it triggers the virus's genes to activate, and so you're getting a more ancient version of the virus, a more aggressive form. It's like autophagy and everything else. Genesis is what happens. The virus has a kind of genesis and activates its genes to solve the problem. So it wants to thrive, and you'll get wiping it out by a massive number because you've ramped up your immune system. And so it basically digs in. It's got the ancient genes in it anyway, and possibly it connects to viruses that are related to it as well. So it's like downloading the information, like the internet. There's this quantum internet, and then it's getting access to some of this information to order its own genetic structure to survive. So that might be increasing proteins, it might be altering its shape in some way, all sorts of things that it will do to survive. So ultimately, I guess in a host is having equilibrium with the virus, because it wants to exist, and you kind of are this biosphere. So with inside your body, it's a living world as well in itself. And there's all sorts of things in your blood and living in your body that you're not even aware of, or in your guts. So it's just like a cave network full of load of bacteria and stuff. It seems all weird, but that's actually what's happening in there. It's this microcosmos of biology that exists there. So that is why the virus adapts. So by giving yourself antibiotics, all you're doing is for pressurising the virus to become stronger. So what could be the answer? Well, I know colloidal silver works well at basically it just shuts it down because it creates a barrier around it. And so it's not really something, unless it can adapt to deal with silver, it's not. It's a bit like us and radiation. You just expose it to radiation, you weaken the organism. So it's not necessarily a stressor it can cope with. But there may be, let's slow down, go too fast. Change the speed limit in this area. So, I mean, that's sort of one area of thinking about viruses. So I wouldn't rush to have antibiotics. Where you should have antibiotics is where you've got outside of the fever and your body's already, it's on the decline, the virus, and you think, well, you either naturally go through the process of healing and so on. But like I've got a cold, I've had a cold last week, but I still got loads of dead virus or something lingering in there. There may have been some of the virus that's decided to form a symbiosis with me and is living inside me now. rather than initially. I think there's a reaction of a new pathogen in the body that raises its defence systems. Once the virus goes into a kind of dormant stage, or it reduces its kind of aggressiveness in some way, then it seems to be less of a problem. The other thing about viruses, you've got things like influenza, and for some reason people suddenly get these colds, but they don't have colds at other times of the year. And why is that then? Because the virus is living and hibernating in carriers. There are people that are carrying the flu virus, which means there's no, when you give people vaccines and so on, all you might be doing is feeding the actual current virus, dead virus, because some people are carrying it, and then it may go through a mutation, like I mentioned about stress altering in the genetic level, in the genome of the virus. This may go under its morphosis, so while it's with you, it tries to remain dormant and exist in you, and then it goes for a stage where the temperature changes outside, or it's got some seasonal effect. It may even be mitochondrial. Now, the thing about seasonal activity is that plants are very much affected by it. Humans are affected by light levels and so on, because we are not devoid of a plant element in our bodies, which is our mitochondrial, as a kind of fungus type bacteria element to it. So there's like a TNA strand, I think. There's RNA, TNA, and some things. TNA is more the virus, it's more in between it. So there is that element that there's a barrier. There's a kind of this barrier between your DNA and the mitochondrial, but there's a kind of a middle area where they can communicate to each other. So it's happily using itself as a vessel for another organism, your genetics, your DNA, to ride it basically and control it. Just checking it. Right, that's fine. It's good. So the influenza remains in the body of the person, and then the host, say when it becomes active and it's looking to reinfect, or maybe it's just appropriating. It just wants to find a new host to expand into. So it has a parasitic type relationship with this host. So it's living in it while it's happy, and then it goes through a reactive phase where it tries to reach out and get into somebody else. And the only way it can do that is to shed the skin of its old host, and that's because in disease-type factors and qualities in their bodies. So every time you basically have a virus, you're exposed to it, it's probably living inside you at some level. So it will come back again. That's why people get ill suddenly. They don't have to have met somebody who was ill. I mean, the other theory was that it's some of these viruses come from space, which is probably true as well. I mean, they've got to be some hardy things, but they might be from asteroids and comets and so on. So if anything does live inside them, the water vapour of it, it may be exposed to all sorts of things and be quite extreme. But I imagine it'd be quite aggressive if it gets into a human. So that's the problem with viruses, is that they don't live outside of the host. I mean, we know that influenza and stuff, it can't exist that long outside of a human, but if it's living inside the human in a dormant state, it could spend years in there if it wanted to. It doesn't have to do anything. And it may even be triggered by another virus of the same strain coming in. How many people have you met? I mean, I know from my experience that, say, for my mother, she's had a vaccine and then which made her ill. And so why did it cause it? It causes this basically it causes inflammation in the body and other reactions, but then it also may have set off if there was a dormant virus inside her body to activate as well. So that's why she got flu after having a flu jab, because she's already got another flu virus inside her. I mean, it's the same. I mean, if is he speaking the truth here? Could people be carriers of viruses? I mean, yeah, they've got things like the wart virus, and that's a prime example. It's living in you. You're suppressing it with your immune system, but it wants to exist within you, and as a result, when your immune system's down, it flares up, or you've got no way of dealing with it. And some people have got more aggressive type forms. But once you have a particular type of virus, or you have a particular type of say you've got bacteria or anything like that, its other genetic family member won't engage with it. They say this about parasites. So if you've already got a parasite in your body, other parasites won't want to go in there because it's already got competition. And the other thing about immunity and vaccination, for example, they talk about things like the mother's body has the thrush virus and so on in the vagina, and what happens is by a natural birth, or basically, which is a birth that doesn't involve any mechanical means, like cutting somebody out. Obviously, C-sections and things like cesarean sections are necessary, so I don't have an issue against it. But there is probably a way they could take a vagina swab and expose the child to it, because it ends up going into the child's biome, a protective layer around its skin. And so once they've got that level, they have a natural immunity, which is the immunity of the parent, given over to the child. So there's the genetic benefits. I mean, I would also say that, for other humans, having some of their genetics is not going to do you any harm. It might actually give you a better range of genetic immunity, basically. Off we go again. Some other things as well, let's see. There's issues with certain foods might kill off certain bacteria, like in your stomach, but you could introduce another type of bacteria from somebody else, maybe. I mean, there's some gross stuff you could do, but if you had a close partner, I mean, things like urine therapy, if you was to have the urine of somebody else, then any sort of, it tends to be fairly sterile, but if there's anything in that person, you could benefit from it. I mean, I don't think you'd want to eat somebody's turd or anything. There was a chap, though, what he did is he had a week, I think he had things where he had eczema, and it was related to his stomach's immunity. So he probably had antibiotics. They wiped out the healthy bacteria in his stomach, and then the issue was he needs to reintroduce a healthy strain. So he had something in there that wasn't that great. So what he did is he basically cleared himself out. So, I mean, you can hydrogen. I think it's hydrogen chloride. I had something like that before. So you could basically fairly much sterilise your stomach a bit, and then introduce a new bacteria. And so he did. Basically, he used a bit of the person's friend's feces, and he put it in a capsule, and so he just swallowed it. And all that happened is that will go into the stomach and break it down, and then it basically the bacteria that's resistant will move into the gut colon. So that was it. That was the answer, and he gained the benefit from it. Other things, like if you're a sort of, you and your friend have had a child, and you're breastfeeding, there's no issue with swapping your children around to breastfeed off each other. It may seem a bit gross, but you're going to get all the nutrient benefits of this other person. There may be some other things about stem cells and some other stuff that's in there, but basically the child's going to benefit from mixing. You're mixing its food source a bit, or its provider. I think in the older times these things were more practiced, and I mean within sort of Islamic culture they do something with camel feces where they basically, where's he going? Okay, stay wide. Not sure where he was going. It wasn't really indicating, so I don't know where he's going. They tell you what, this car drives like a beauty. So it's ultimate car now. So there's a lot of benefit there. So I was just saying they cook it up and they eat it, and I'm sure it probably sounds gross, but maybe it tastes better than it appears to be. The only thing is about other people's bacteria. So I mean, when I go to toilet, it doesn't smell. When I fart, it doesn't really have any smells either to it. I'd have to have a very strong food type to have an effect on it, because basically my gut bacteria has changed drastically from when I was a child, and I don't have that in there anymore. Whatever was there has probably died off from antibiotics and so on. I don't know if I need it, but it may be why you get other issues like arthritis, other things to do with the gut bacteria. So it's all very important stuff. So, anything else? So yeah, I mean, I've been invited to go to India. There's a Kana village, and I think I'll put that on the bucket list. So I'll go to India at some point and go to this meditation centre. They've been working on it to basically re-green it and all sorts. It was just a bit of a barren area, and so they're putting plants and they're building things in the area. There's alternative centres, alternative healing. There's all sorts of stuff in there, in the mix. So it'd be quite an interesting place to go to, actually. I'm not too sure if I can get it into the start of next year. I mean, my financial situation's changing a lot, and as an individual, I guess I'm growing as well. I've wanted to get into the go along with the old MGTOW thing. So I'm a bit more open, but I realise there's a lot of cons on the internet. I mean, I recently had someone message me, and she had left her Instagram account on her profile, so I looked at that, and anyway, I was able to trace down her Facebook account as well. I didn't want to pay a load of membership for it. However, for some reason her Instagram, it could become a broken link. I couldn't get to it. Even I looked for a lot of her photos, and she wrote to me. So I said, I was sort of like, dear, whatever her name is, and I wrote a nice letter, and that she can get back to me. But I think, well, how this operates, this particular site, is that they have people that basically encourage you to join as a member, and then they take a cut of the cash that they get from it. So they're just an agent. So they operate as an agent to abuse their clients, basically, which is terrible. And it's a shame because if you go just to meet people, integrate with people, get to know people, you don't want someone trying to take financial advantage of you. So what should you do as a MGTOW? You don't have to be kind to them. I'll tell you what, if you think they're messing around, just slam them. Just tell them it straight. Where the hell do you get off with manipulating people and taking money from them? You should be ashamed of yourself. Or whatever. You just hit back. Because if you're a nice guy, then normally you just let things slide a little bit, and it won't do you any good in the long run, because you've got to basically, as they would say, grow a pair. And you need to look at, you can be kind to your family, but these are not your family, and you're not going to gain any sort of leverage, so you have to sort of work it a bit more into it. So that's one of the things, when you involve yourself, it's because you've got a preset condition whereby you might be supportive and kind, and you come across people that are not looking for that. But at a more subtle level, you might be more manipulative than you realise. So you do kind things, expecting you'll get some type of favouritism with the person, and what actually happens is you look like a creep. So you have to switch off. If you're just aware of that behaviour you might do in the background, it's like some people are very authoritative, and so they need to get off their high horse sometimes. You say, right, I can deal with this, so pull back. But some people can't stop. They just so there's things in people's nature that you have to be aware of, basically, and aware of your own nature is important. So yeah, I'm dealing with a client. I've got a client who's got dementia, and she believes she's in a place at work when she's actually living there as a home. So I'm going to have to find a strategy, for dealing with her behaviour, basically. So, and I've realised what it was. She had a bathroom done, and by having a bathroom done, that's triggered this sort of behaviour where she believes she lives in some other place. And so you might as well just go with the fantasy, but kind of alter it. So this is where you manipulate her. So I'm just going to say to her, basically, she's living in a new home. Oh yeah, this is your new home. It was done up, so it probably looks like the office, or whatever this work environment is, but it's not. This is your new home, actually. So yeah, that's quite fine. Don't worry about it. And hopefully that will start to stick. And because her mind had found a problem it can't answer, and so it's trying to fix the gap. Tell me to go shift gears. I just need one that talks a bit more. It'd be nice, actually. How are you doing? Or something. And the other thing about this my car is a Corsa 1.4 going back to cars, is that I filled it up a week ago, and it's just going under half a tank now. So it's a real treat. So I spent about maybe £40 on the tank, but in a week I've used 20 quid, so it's pretty good. Right, anyway, it's a big sign off, and speak to you soon.